Welcome back to Virtue Season 1, Episode 2. I want to thank everyone who took some time out last week to watch the first video, and I want to give a special thanks to everyone who offered some feedback so I can create a better experience for you. Now, last week, we talked about the virtue of temperance. Eat not to dullness, drink not to elevation. Now, so that I did right in this virtue, I made 3 very important changes in my life. The first thing I started doing was measuring all of my food. Every time before I would eat, I would measure my food or I would weigh my food so I had a very realistic idea of exactly what I was consuming. The second major change I made was that I wrote down everything I consumed, everything I had to drink, everything I had to eat. I wrote it down in my journal. This is exactly why we talked last week about getting a journal so that you can write down everything you're doing on your road to success. The third major change I made in my life when we talked about temperance last week was I decided I was going to work out every single day for a minimum of 30 minutes. 30 minutes a day, write down everything you consume, measure or weigh your food and all your drinks, and you'll get a very realistic idea of what your behaviors are, what your habits are, and if you are going to change them, if you plan to change them, that's going to get you started, okay? Now, as I was doing that last week, I was also weighing myself regularly, and I noticed something. The weight was just starting to disappear. From last week to today, I have lost 9 pounds. Now I have about another 80 pounds I want to lose, but I'm not setting out to lose 80 pounds. I'm setting out to lose 1 pound. And then I set out to lose 1 pound, and then I set out to lose 1 pound. Will Smith tells a story about a time his father asked him to build a wall, and his father told him, you don't set out to build a wall, you set out to lay 1 brick, and you lay that brick as perfectly as any brick has ever been laid, and before you know it, you have a wall. And that's what we're going to do as we build up and we move on the road to success. We're going to go 1 step at a time, 1 realistic, achievable short-term goal at a time, and we're going to get to exactly where we want to be in the long term. All right? Now this week, we're going to focus on the virtue of silence. Speak not but what may benefit yourself or others. Avoid trifling conversation. I want you to really think about that. I want you to take a moment and write this virtue down in your journal, because you will be writing in your journal every day this week as you follow this virtue. Silence. Speak not but what may benefit yourself or others. Avoid trifling conversation. So what does that mean? What that means is if you're at the barbershop talking about who the best ball player is in the league, I want you to write it down and I want you to get out of that conversation. If you're at the salon talking about, what's going on with the latest celebrities and whatever the news may be with this person or that person, I want you to get out of that conversation and I want you to write it down. As an old phrase we were all taught as a child, if you don't have anything nice to say, don't say anything at all. I want to change that up slightly for you this week. I want you to think about it a little bit differently every time you get ready to speak. I want you to think to yourself, if you don't have anything beneficial to say, don't say anything at all. This is a very important virtue on the road to success, and we need to honor the virtue of silence, and that's what we're going to do this week. Now, as we honor the virtue of silence this week, I want you to create a goal for yourself. I want you to figure out where you want to be 1 year from now. And all week long, as you monitor your silence and you are in your journal, every time you cannot manage to be silent, reflecting on what you can do to be a better person and what you can do to be a more successful person, I want you to write out a plan on how exactly you're going to get where you want to be 1 year from now. So I want you to figure out, where do you want to be in 6 months? What does the end of this quarter look like for you? What does the end of this month look like for you? I also want you to create weekly and even daily goals on how exactly you plan to get closer and closer and closer to where you want to be 1 year from today. Now this week, as you're working on your plan, if you're having trouble developing your plan, or if you're having trouble working on your plan, I want you to contact me. You can reach out to me. I'm on social media, and I can help you develop that plan and build that plan if that's what you need. So as you are in your journal this week documenting all of these things, I also want you to be working on that plan. And it's very important that you have that plan developed by the time I come back to you next week, because we're going to be doing something very specific specific with that plan next week when we prepare to move on to the next virtue. Now, when we come back next week, I'm going to share with you exactly how the virtue of silence worked out for me, what I was able to accomplish this week on my personal road to success, and what we're going to do moving into next week and progressing on to the next virtue. I want to thank you all again for tuning in, and don't ever forget to remind yourself, you can be successful. It's just a matter of will.